just to tip everybody off, and you're going to figure out real quick that I'm going to be talking about DISC. DISC is a science. It's about 100-year-old technology, and it's not exactly 100, but there's a guy named Marston, I can't remember his first name, that did the science behind behaviors, studying behaviors. And I use DISC because it's a low level entry as to how people behave in this world, and understanding how they behave is the key to communicating effectively with that person. So it says selling with smarter with DISC, and what I'm saying is selling smarter with understanding how people behave in this world and the language that they understand. And I don't necessarily mean about do they speak French or English. I'm talking about the language of how they operate in this world. All right, so this is the agenda. This is, and we've already gotten into too much time, so I'll probably go a little faster than what this is. This
Okay.
is just giving a heads up on what we're going to talk about. So there's going to be the first thing we're going to talk about is traditional selling misses 75% of buyers. We're going to move into what business are you really in? That's a little bit deeper question. I promise not to get too philosophical. Then we're going to go into basic understanding of DISC. If you're familiar with DISC, this will be a review. If you're not, then this is based on just either little understanding or just a general understanding of DISC. And then we're going to talk about adapting your style to what the buyer is, your behavioral style versus theirs, and how to use that. Then we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to dip our toe into building trust. People trust based on their wiring or their behaviors. They trust certain things. And then we'll go through some breakthrough stuff. So the next slide is talking about if you're communicating in your language, you could actually be missing up to 75% of your opportunities. Now, I will dig deeper into that, and it's not always 75%, but depending on your behavioral style, if you are communicating in your language and you're selling to someone the way you like to be sold, chances are you could be missing anywhere from 50% up to 75% of those opportunities because you're communicating in a language that they don't understand. So think of it that way. You're speaking a language they don't understand because you're speaking in your language. The next slide is we're going to take a dive into the what I'm talking about as far as how to deliver a sales presentation or deliver on a sales effectiveness, the old way versus the new way. And the new way is the new way I'm introducing to you, and that is behavioral style selling. The old way is selling a product or a service or pushing features and benefits. Focus on closing techniques, because if you've ever done any assessments, and especially on sales assessments, it may say that you're really good at prospecting or you're not good at closing, or it may say you're really good at closing and not prospecting, or somewhere in the middle. So it'll give you, I guess, a report that helps you identify your strengths and weaknesses. What I'm presenting on today is about helping you understand why is it I'm good at prospecting but not at closing, or why is it that I'm better at closing but not at prospecting. And this today is going to give you some insight as to where your challenges may be to help you get better at that. And that's what this slide's all about. So let's, Christy, if you'll move to the next one. People buy for their reasons and not mine. So we think about as two individuals, and think of yourself as business development or in sales or whatever your role is, and you're talking to an owner or a director or whoever it is that would be on the buying end of what you're doing, the sales or the service or products that you're selling. Think of them as people, and they have a life, right? They have a career and they have family. And as we all think about our lives, I do things for two reasons. I do one because I want to generate revenue so I can help provide for my family. I've got two kids in college, so I've got some financial things going on that require me to go out and make money. And then there's the other side of my business, the sheer appreciation for the work that I do. The people you're selling to have those same lives. And so understanding what's important to them, is it family? Is it prestige? Is it, and there's always money. So it's no matter who you are, everybody wants money. So what is it that's driving them? What is it? How do they operate in this world? And what are they trying to accomplish? And is it more family related? Is it more business related? Is it some of both? What does that look like? And so that is what I'm talking about. They have an agenda. It's not necessarily to buy the product to do the thing that needs to be done with whatever it is. It's why are they even there? Why is it they're working at this company? Who is it they're providing for? And what are the benefits of them doing the things that they do? So the next slide is communication. Make sure we're on the same one, Chrissy. This communication takes place on the listener's terms. Is that where we are?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is one I'm gonna let this one marinate for a minute. Communication takes place on the listener's terms. And I'm gonna frame this one out for you. Just because you're breathing fire doesn't mean they feel the heat. And if anybody on here has children or a spouse, you know, if I'm watching the ball game and my wife asks me a question about grocery shopping in the middle of a basketball game, I am not listening to that because I am solely focused on this basketball game. And her agenda on groceries or what food we're going to have this weekend for company coming over is the least of my worries right now. She needs to speak a language that I need to understand. And when is it time to say those things? So just if she says the word spreadsheet to me, my behavioral style, I shut down because I don't want to have anything to do with spreadsheets. I want to talk through problems and she wants to look at data. So we have to understand the communication. What is it that we hear? What's the language that we speak in order for our message to resonate? So the next slide is talking about different behavioral styles. So we're going to unpack this listener's terms a little bit here. Behavioral styles. D.I.S.C is a universal, so D.I.S.C is a science, and there's an art and science to understanding behaviors. The first thing that you have to do in order to understand behaviors of another person is you have to take insight first. How do I operate in this world? What are the things that I thrive in? When these things happen, do I lean in or do I push back on these things? So it's understanding yourself, then it's about understanding the others. Because once you have clarity about what you resonate with and what you push away from, it's then easier to recognize who the others are, whatever that style is. Once you understand who you are, how they may be different, then you can adapt to their style in order to communicate effectively. And that's how you're going to get results. So let's move into a deeper next slide. We're going to go into now, this is a little bit busy slide. Don't worry about it. We're going to unpack each one of these, but I want to give you an overview of DISC. And if you look at the four, these are the four basic behavioral styles. And this is in any culture. Whether you're Nigeria, whether you're in the United States, whether you're in China, Mexico, there are four basic behavioral styles in all cultures. Now, each culture will have a higher percentage of each style. And these numbers that I have here are actually worldwide numbers based on TTI Success Insights. And that's the company that I use for all the DISC assessments that I do. Worldwide, it says 17% of the population is directors or D personalities. There is I, and that's 38%. So you can see the breakdown across there. In separate cultures, you may find a higher concentration of another style. For instance, Asian cultures typically have a higher C or compliant, which is that blue one on the far right. In that culture, you see a higher percentage than 13%. In the United States, it's typically the I's and the S's that's real strong and we're people oriented. So that's why you see those. So this is a breakdown as far as each style. And on the next slide is we're going to take a little bit different look into these styles. So think of it like four quadrants. There is the blue. I'll just go with colors for now, just to keep it simple. The blues and the greens are more introverted type of behavioral styles. The reds and the yellows, which actually is showing up more orange here, but the reds and the yellows are more extroverted. So that is on your plane going left and right. Now, if you look at that plane that's going from top to bottom, the two at the top, the blues and the reds, those are task-oriented people, and the greens and the showing up as orange here, those are people focused. So that is kind of the not kind of that is the way the four different styles show up. So you can see that some people are more task oriented and introverted. Some people are task oriented and extroverted. Some people are more people focused. So there's this different quadrant. And on the far right, you can also see faster paced and slower paced. So D's and I's, they're extroverted, but they also operate at a faster pace. They walk faster, they talk faster, they have hand gestures, and the greens and the blues are more of a slower paced, slower in the way they talk, slower in the way they move, and definitely slower in the way they make decisions, right? So that is how the behavioral styles are mapped. And this is just a general overview of those styles. Now, to unpack each one of these, this gives you a basic understanding of those styles. So the director or the dominance style is dominant, decisive, direct. This is how they operate in this world. They're ambitious. You can read this. I don't want to read through all this. You can read through it while I'm talking, but these styles are all of it's about what you say and what you don't say. What they are listening for is results. What they are listening for is impact. They're looking for what is the investment and what's my return on that investment. How is it what you've got going to impact me and my organization? So they're very inwardly focused and they are very goal oriented. And if you speak to their goals, if you speak to the results that they're trying to achieve, you have to, that's what they're listening for. The thing about these people is they do not like vague, they do not like long-winded people. Get to the point, show me how it matters, and give me options. Don't tell them anything. You want to say, okay, there's two options here. And even if there is only one, you want to give them some type of option. They want to feel like they're in control. And this is 17% of the population. The next slide, these are the influencers. And I will go ahead and say that there's combinations of each. Me personally, I am what they call a high I, high D. So my strongest behavioral style is this I, which you probably figure that out now. These people are enthusiastic, they're collaborative, they're optimistic. What they don't like is they don't like coldness, they don't like too much data. Like I mentioned earlier with my wife, she's a spreadsheet person. I absolutely despise them. I just use them because I have to, right? I like working with teams or working with other people in order to accomplish things. These are your influencer type of styles. Typically, they're found in sales. It doesn't mean that you have to be a high influencer behavioral style in order to be successful. It's just you find a high percentage of people with this style in this category. This is 38%. So if you are an influencer style and what you're reading here resonates with you, you are in a largest portion of the world as far as how you operate. So when you talk in your language, you're basically speaking to 38% of the population, which means if you do that, you're missing out on the majority of people by selling in a style that they do not resonate with. The next one is the next highest. And these are the relators, or the steadiness is what they're called. And these are the greens. These people are typically, I've seen in healthcare, nurses, clergy a lot of times can be this way. Teachers are a lot this way. I have found, ironically, I've worked with a lot of trades, so HVAC, plumbing, electrical. a lot of the Hispanics that work in the trades are very high in this. So if you have a business owner that you're selling to who is Hispanic, works in the trades, and they talk and move at a slower pace, chances are they are very strong in this type of behavioral style. That's been my experience in the work that I do. So that's one way to kind of keep an eye out for those people. They're going to talk slower, they're going to move slower. And when you push them, they push back. Even if they agree with you, the harder you push, the worse it's going to get, meaning the more challenging it's going to be in order to get them to buy or agree to whatever it is you're trying to do. These people like support, right? The next slide is the last one we're going to break down. And this is the compliance. Think Bill Gates, right? These are analytical people. These are people that want precision. You will find journalists are a lot this way. There's, trying to think another trade, attorneys. There tends to be a high number of attorneys that have a strong behavioral style in this way. These people, they get color coded as perfectionists. And if you call them that, you're going to piss them off. I can tell you right now, they do not see themselves as perfectionists. What it is they just hate being wrong. And so their resistance to making a decision or their resistance to doing something is they're second guessing because accuracy means something to them. They don't just say, we'll figure it out on the way, or if you say educated guess to these people, they're done, right? That is not the language that they resonate with, and their ears will shut down, and you're done when you speak that type of language to these people. They love being right. It's not about winning. The D's, the dominant style, they like to win. It's about getting results and winning the game. These people look the same, except they don't want to win. They just don't want to be wrong. That's the way that these people look at it. And this is a small population. There's only 13% of them out there. But when you get them jazzed up a little bit, they hold their ground stronger than any of the other styles. So be very aware if you have someone that you're selling to that has this type of behavioral style. All right. So the next one, what we're going to do is we're going to take, okay, now that we know all of that, let's take a look at how do we identify these people. So this is a cheat sheet that will help you understand that if you walk into their office without them even being in the room, how to get a general idea of what style they might be. In someone that is a strong dominance personality, or the reds in that top left right there, they're the ones that in the wall around them, especially behind them, if you're sitting across from them, they've probably got every award that they won way back to Boy Scouts, right? Every award that you can imagine is on the wall in there. And if there's a picture with them and Michael Jordan or somebody like that, I guarantee you it's going to be in there somewhere. So the company president or president of the United States or whatever it is, if there's somebody that's in authority or somebody that they deem as extremely successful, they'll have a picture of that person in there somewhere on the desk somewhere. And that is the easiest telltale sign of these people. A lot of times their desk is very clean. And if there's something on there, it's something that promotes how good they've done or successes that they've had. That's your D style. Your I style, you might, if there's pictures in there, it might be them with some buddies playing golf. It might be them at a tailgate, some sporting event. There's going to be some type of picture in there. There's going to be something in there that's going to be what I call fun related, right? Where they went out and enjoyed life. Maybe it's a vacation or it's a cruise or something with family or friends. These are the type of pictures that you want to look for. They also will have some awards on the wall. So I'm a high I. If you look behind me, you can tell I'm a hunter, which is outdoors. It's something you do with friends. And these, in a way, are types of awards. to me, it's not about having these animals on the wall. It's the story that I can tell about when I was out with buddies and we went duck hunting and that bird, I remember that duck and we did this. And so they start sharing about the experience that they had with that. And that's a good way to warm up with this style of person is when you see those pictures, or if it's something like what's on the wall behind me, ask about that. Tell me the story behind that, not just, hey, that's a pretty duck. Tell me the story about the duck. And that's where you get them to lean in. Now we're going to get into the greens and the blues. The greens or the steadiness, they're more about family. So my wife, I am a high I, high D, the orange or the yellow and the red, and she's more C and S. And I'll just share a story with her. Pictures in, well, you can see what mine are, but in her office, she has pictures of family around the Christmas tree, pictures of her grandparents who've been gone for years, but she still has a picture of them on her desk at her office. And these are the S people. It's about family. It's about a slower pace. It's about feel and harmony with these people, not necessarily a complete harmony, but that is what they desire. So a lot of times these green or these steadiness people, they may be making a decision for harmony purposes. Harmony meaning they want peace, they want everybody to be family like at the work or whatever. So selling to them and leaning in on harmony with the steadiness at a slower pace, meaning don't push them, is the way that resonates with them. Now, the blues in the far right, those are compliance. Remember, these are the people that hate being wrong. So when you come to them, talking to them, present data. You can throw a fire hose of information at these people and they will take it. They will take any data, facts, figures, spreadsheets. They thrive in that type of stuff. So if you have any leave behinds or any article, if you're trying to get the attention of somebody who has this type of behavioral style, sharing information and quality information is very important. That they lean into that and they will read it. I don't know when they're going to read it, but I guarantee you, if they're interested, they are going to read any information, any data, any journals, whatever it is, the information you're trying to share with them. They will check it for validity, and they will embrace the information and they will consider it. So these people usually are quieter, very reserved. Data is their language. All right. Now that we've gone through behaviors, we're going to go into trust. The thing about this one, people are, what we've been talking about is how people are wired. We're wired to interact in a certain way. So think about wiring and trust. And I'm going to go back to the C's because I like to pick on the C's just because they're easy to pick on anyway. But C's want data. When there's a problem, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to ask for the data. They're going to go, is the spreadsheet correct? These are the ones that are typically accountants, the accounting department. These are IT. A lot of times you find them in IT. Attorneys, a lot of attorneys have this type of style. So think about those types of people and the ones that you're selling to, who is it that leans in on data? So if I'm an I and my language is words, mine is, hey, let's go out to dinner, or I got tickets to the whatever concert, inviting a C to that to enjoy that experience without there being some form of data first, they'll push back. They might actually want to go to that concert, but they'll push back because they're a data first before they're a personal relationship first. So I's and S's are about the people and the experience. The C's are about data. So in order to get them to go out to dinner or get them to go to a concert, you've got to sell them on the facts first and the data. That's where they trust. They trust data, not necessarily your words. You're not going to sweet talk those people. Same thing with the I's. Don't throw a bunch of data at them first. You want to lean in with the people and the experience, and you might want to ask them to go out to dinner or for lunch first to get to know each other, and then they'll decide if they want to accept the data. So, speaking a language that they understand in a way that they want to understand it and to receive it is how you're going to build trust. And this, right, this I guess this funnel that I've got here, it's not necessarily that consistency is the biggest thing. There is a way to build trust, but starting with consistency is the way that you build the competence, the connection, the character, the credibility in order to get the trust. These are all words that you're going to have at some point, depending on the style. Some are going to be stronger than others. Connection and character are going to matter more to the influencer styles than competency. Competency is a big dominance and compliance. The Reds and the Reds and the Blues are big on competence. That's a big one for them. Character is also a big one. Connection, meh, yes, but after you show your competence and your character, that's how you build the credibility. But the mother of all is consistency. It's got to be consistent competence, consistent connection, consistent show of good character, consistent credibility. So think of consistency as consistency and that's where the magic starts to happen in order to earn their trust. So the next slide, this is talking about how to sell to the different styles. So hopefully you've gotten some kind of insight. Now you can go online, and I'll pause here for a second. You can go online and take a DISC assessment for free, and it will give you, it'll break it down as to are you a D, are you an I, a S, a C, or what combination that you are. One thing I will warn you about doing those online and doing them for free that you got to know what you're dealing with. You got to know how to apply it. So the science is going to show what style you are. The art behind it is knowing how to interpret it in order to get it placed and effective in your manner. This sheet right here is like a quick sheet to help you understand that if you are a primary D and you're selling to a primary I or what they call a high D selling to a high I, these styles can clash. So the D, what this is saying on that first slide at the top left, what that's showing is if you're a high D and the person you're selling to is a high I, it's saying slow down, be personable, warm up. They need enthusiasm, not just getting results and ROI. It's about an experience for the I. And so the D's need to take it down a notch and let's connect first. Then we can get to results. The D's and the S's, that's an even harder stretch. So if you're the high dominant style and you're selling to someone that's a high S, you really need to get a hold of yourself. I'm not just going to sugarcoat it because these S's and D's clash big time. So do the next one over to the right, the I's selling to a C. Those two styles are really, really challenging to work with if they don't understand the other style. So a D is a faster pace of all the styles, and the S or the green is the slowest style. So the D's really got to embrace speaking it slower and not pushing too hard, but still pushing to get it done. But the way you push as a D is you give them deadlines. You don't just keep saying, I need you to buy this, I need you to buy this. It's going to be great. You're going to get the results. They don't want to hear that. You can say, the faster you implement this, the sooner you see results to help everyone, that type of language. Same thing with an I and a C. An I wants to earn their trust by their words and their relationships. And the C's, that's the last thing they want. They want data. Then they'll decide if they want the relationship. So this is a cheat sheet talking about the different styles and how they can talk to one another in order for the language to resonate and get the point across and to be received. And this is that cheat sheet for that. Let's see the next one. Okay. This one's I guess I called it the chameleon approach. I really didn't have that great of, that's about what it is. It's about adapting. The first thing you need to do when you're going to adapt to a different style is observe. Now, you can misread a different style, especially if they're very strong in two that are similar. So, like my wife, who is a high S, high C, both of those are introverted and they move at a slower pace. So that one's a little bit easier. My daughter, who is a high D and a high S, so those styles actually conflict. So depending on who you get, what day of the week you get this person, she could be a high D or she could be a high S. Those people have an internal struggle, right? Hurry up and get it done. No, wait, wait. Is everybody going to be happy with it? No, we got to get it done. But am I going to make anybody upset? So that's their internal struggle that they will have. So understanding and observing the style that they have and to respond. So you want to mirror. When you're talking with them, you want to be aware of what style am I seeing here? Is it somebody that wants to get results and get it done fast? Is this somebody that's asking for information? Is there objection to this sale because they're asking for more data? That's your hint that you're talking to us. You're probably talking to a C or an S or a combination of those two. If they're faster pace, going, yeah, let's get it done. How fast can we get it in here? If that's the way they are, then that helps you know, okay, it's probably a D, could be a high I, could be both. So seeing the style that they're operating in and then flexing your style, which is number two, to adapt to that, to mirror what they're going on. So if you're a more slower paced person and you're selling to somebody that's a little faster, you need to step up your game. You need to know, okay, this person is, I need to anticipate that they're going to be asking for me to get results quickly. And I've got, are we going to get how fast is the order going to come in? How long before it gets here? What's the lead time? All these types of things. These are people that have a high sense of urgency and are probably dominant. So you need to be prepared that when you're dealing with them to respond appropriately, or they're going to shut down, you're going to lose them. So, number three is their agenda first. Do they want it slower? They want it faster? Are they data people? Are they people oriented? And then you're going to start building the trust. So that's the four stages that I've got there. The next slide is this is in their terms, right? And this isn't you. This is thinking in their terms. So prospecting, not that they are thinking about prospecting. That's not what I mean. In the prospecting phase, what are the right buyers? So this is what is it that how do they operate? What is their style? If you know that style, right? Then you got to go to first impressions. They fast paced, they slow paced, are they data, are they people? What is it we're dealing with here? And just by looking around the room, you can get an idea of what they are. So lean into that a little bit, see how they respond. Then qualifying. The thing about qualifying is they're qualifying you. If you're not speaking in a language that they understand, they're qualifying, am I going to continue any kind of relationship and give you any kind of time with it? Then you've got to demonstrate it, right? You've got to be a chameleon, you got to act like someone that they want. You've got to adjust your style, maybe not. Then that's where the influencing comes in. How do people want to be influenced? So people want to be influenced with words and relationships. They want to be influenced with data. And then that's where the close comes in. All right. Next slide. Here's some takeaways. Now, this is understanding your style first. And I know I've said it before and I want to say it again is first you have to understand your style. Then you can understand how they're different, whoever they are. But understanding yourself is where the starting point is. Then you want to read your prospects. Then you're going to be able to close the gap to get the client. So communication takes place on the listener's terms. You have to speak a language they understand. If they took all of us and dropped us off in the middle of China in order to get food, water, and shelter, we need to be able to speak some Chinese. We're going to have to learn their language, or we're going to have a tough time getting the basic necessities of living. over there. We're in their country. We need to understand their language because they have something we need. Same thing if they come over here. They need, that's why people, when they come to the United States, they learn English because a lot of people don't know the language of wherever it is that they came from. So they have to learn the language in the environment that they're in. Same thing with selling. When you go into their world, you need to understand the language that they operate off of in order to get something, to help them get what they need or to help you make the sale. Speak a language they understand. Learn some Chinese or whatever it is, the language that they speak. I'm using that as an example. Okay. Now, next steps. This is what I recommend. If you don't know your style, find a disc assessment and take it. You can find these online for free. It's basic information. Now, when you take the free ones, as you all know, they're not always free. People, you're going to get on some email list or whatever, and you can unsubscribe. So there's a basic entry level that it costs you $0 to understand your style. The other thing you can do, and I think you're going to love this, there's a book called Surrounded by Idiots. This is my favorite disc book, and it talks about the four different styles. So if you don't want to take an assessment online, a free one online, and get trapped by all the emails, there's some books, Surrounded by Idiots, or you can just go to Google and say books on disc, and you can audio. There's an audio version. There's a hardback version, softback. So the point is try to find ways to understand your style so that you can then understand how the rest of the other people operate, whatever is different than your style. So that's step number one. Then there's also different guides that you can get out there, also through like Amazon or Audible or whatever, that you can, besides the books, there's like these workbooks that you can get that'll help you go through some exercises on how to communicate to a different style of person. The other thing you can do, there's schedule a strategy session. I know there's some several people I've seen on the NIA website that are specialized in disc. I know there's one in Houston. I think I met with him. He's very knowledgeable. There's more than just him. There's myself, but there's people that do that type of work. Reach out to them and see if they're willing to spend 30 minutes or an hour kind of sharing on some things on disc. I will say before you do that, have an idea what your style is and what you're trying to accomplish before you connect with them. Excuse me. I think that's it. Let's see the last slide. Yeah, the last slide is thank you. So thank you. Yeah. So the work that I do, excuse me. Again, I do not do sales training. I'm a SEPA, so I'm an exit planner. The people that hire me mostly are people that have businesses that are owner dependent, meaning the business evolves around them. If you take the owner out of the business will struggle to survive. So the work that I do is I help develop their teams to be more effective, to take on more responsibility in order for the business to grow. So same thing is we have to understand other people. We have to understand how they're wired in order to get them to work together more effectively. So I'm not on here to sell you any sales training. Yes, I've done it before, but that's not the work that I do. But understanding others and how to work effectively with another person, whether it's through sales, whether it's through a different department, whether you're a business owner trying to grow the business, that's the type of work that I do. So anyway, that's enough. That's me, and just thought I would share some things that I've learned along the way to see if it can help you with sales training.
Yeah, you want to see if anybody has any questions?
Yeah. Yep.
Anybody? I know I have a question, but I'm going to see if anybody has another one first. Yes, maybe, no. And remember,
Nope.
everybody's muted. So,
I'll just have a comment. I appreciate you doing this, Alan. This is
Yeah.
this is great content, and I like that you're you're laying, just kind of the wisdom behind it, right, and the little bit deeper dive into the disc
Yeah. Yeah.
understanding of it.
And and I'll go a step further. I use DISC. It's a low level learning entry. So there's cognitive assessments. There's Colby, Myers-Briggs. Oh, there's strength finders. There's all kinds of assessment out there that tell you different things. But from a sales standpoint, especially, understanding the four basic behavioral styles is the easiest way to get into understanding another person. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Cindy.
Sure.
I'll go and ask my question, and I kind of know the answer to it or not, but like when you're trying to assess somebody's style, are there certain phrases that they use all the time or things that they say that can help kind of nail them down?
Yeah, there's two ways. One, you can read their emails, and I think one of the slides had something about emails in there. How they open or close their emails tips off the basic style that they have. Someone that's a high dominance, and I like to pick on the D's and the C's. So a high dominance person will start out Alan colon or semicolon or Alan comma and go straight into the meat of the email. I need you to whatever. And that's a high dominance personality that does that. Also, and I'll use an example of going to lunch. So here's an example of each style asking you to go to lunch. A D will say, I'm going to lunch at 11:30. You want to go? Right. They're very direct, right to the point. They're telling you when they're going, and they may even tell you where they're going. And you're either in or out. If you're out, they're fine with it. An I will say, hey, I hadn't had lunch with you in a while. It'd be great. If you got time, I'd love to have lunch. Let's go to lunch at that burger place. That's the way an I does it. An S, somebody that's a high S or that green one that I was talking about, the way they invite you to lunch, hey, there's this new place, and I heard they've got a fireplace. And if we get there at 11:30 or maybe a little bit before, we might get one of the tables next to the fireplace, or maybe we'll get a place on the patio or whatever. So they're going to talk about the experience of the lunch in their invitation. In a high C, I love picking on these people, is they're going to say, if we left at 11:26, we're going to beat the rush. And if we get back in time, we can get back to the spreadsheet. We'll be able to finish that report by 2 o'clock. So, and I'm being funny, but that's kind of how those different styles might invite you to lunch. And they'll do the same thing in emails as well. But that's a verbal or a communication style where you can kind of get a sense of what style they are.
Do you actually like when you research, do you like look at their LinkedIn or anything like that to kind of figure it out?
Yeah, that's how they post. A lot of times on how they post or their descriptions. If they've got alphabet soup behind their name, chances are that they're probably a D or an I. They might be a C. S's don't typically care about the credentials as much. But if they've got 18 different credentials after their name, there's a real strong chance that they're a high dominance personality. Yeah. Yeah, and how they post, the things that they post about. If everything they post is about the accomplishments they have or the accomplishment that their team has, accomplishment that their company has, it's all about accomplishments and awards and things like that. Those are your high dominance, probably a high I too, but most definitely a dominance behavioral style. If it's more about the team, more team focused, and they're celebrating others, that is an S type. Those are the steadiness types of people. The C's, they don't if they post. I'm saying it jokingly, but the C's, if they post, it's going to be something about accuracy and or analytics or I don't. We had a 93% retention rate on something. They'll identify themselves with analytics and data. Yeah.
I would also say you might need to be cautious about trying to do an analysis based off of their posts because there's so many kind of autopilot programs out there
Sure.
Mm,
that post for you on a calendar basis out of a library of content.
yeah.
It's true. I just trying to think of different ways that you could kind of assess them before. Although I think you do really kind of have to be on the fly, so to speak, when you're having that conversation and be able to adjust the language you're speaking, for lack of a better way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Emails are the best because that's them. Well, usually it's
Usually.
them. Yeah. But you're not gonna, if I'm a high I, even if I've got AI writing emails and AI doing posts for me, I have to teach that AI how I want it done, and I'm going
Mhm.
to teach it in my style. So I think you're still going to get, they're going to show their hand a little bit, It'll be harder to read. To your point, I do think you're right that that will happen, but somebody's educating that AI on something about you. So I think
Mhm.
they're going to have tendencies of a particular style. Where it gets challenging is when people are strong in multiple styles, especially if they're conflicting styles. Like my daughter, she's a high D, high S. Depending on the day, you're convinced she's an S, or you might, and I'm not just poking fun at her. Depends on the day on which person shows up. And I don't mean that in a now that I will say, people who are unmedicated, this is not when there are psychiatric conditions that are untreated, that throws all of this out the window, right? So that's the trump card is any psychiatric condition or mental health thing that may be impeding their communication styles that way, meaning someone who might be depressed or someone who's manic. There's different things that can contribute to clouding muddying up the water, so to speak. So this tool will not filter out those people, and they tend to present themselves in different ways. So that's the outlier here, would be those types of conditions.
Do you think people work in a different mode kind of when they're at home as opposed to at work, or are they always, D&I or S&C or whatever?
Yeah, it's who you are. It's your wiring. It's how you're going to operate. One of the things that a high influence style like myself is a messy desk. And if you saw my desk right now, you would like, yep, he is an I, right? Also, I'm a D. So what'll happen, I'll finally get tired of it and I'll go into clean and I'll put everything up. And that D is like, I want it done. I want it done now. But yeah, so whether you're at home or whatever, wherever it is that you work, you can't hide who you are. You can't, it's gonna show.
Well, I think you just told me exactly what kind I am because you described me to a T when you said if you saw my desk right now, and then when I've had enough, the last business card will be put in its place.